All right. Welcome to the weekly call. Today is Saturday, December 27th. Um, I am going to go over all the assets here in the watch list. If there's anything there that, um, if there's something that's not there that you want to see, just let me know in the chat. Or you can just unmute yourself and let me know. All right. So based on GBP JPY. Now I did get I don't know why I've been getting so many DMs, but I got some matter of fact, I'm planning to turn off the DMs in a second. Um, but and someone asked me to go over my strategy. I think that I go over it every time that we're on the call. Um, but I'm gonna make sure I am very clear on this particular call. Um, so always, I need to look at the bigger picture, right? And the bigger picture is telling me that, and I always get questions like, is the bigger picture on the weekly, on the monthly? It's whatever frame you can see the bigger picture on. So if I go to the daily and I can't see the whole picture, it's not allowing me to see the whole picture. So I just move up a time frame, right? So now this is allowing me to see the whole picture. This is the last low. This was the last break of structure. So I know that I am in a bearish higher time frame range, right? Any questions on that? Okay, no questions. Feel free to ask. Now is the time. Okay. So now that I know that I'm in this bearish structure, I then look at let me go here, here, and here. I then look at the structure of this last leg, right? So in this leg, the structure that I see here, here, and then a break here, and then a pull back here, and then a push all the way down. So I marked up the supply zone of this last push down. This is my supply zone. So this is where I'm expecting to buy up to before we get some kind of pullback. It doesn't necessarily mean it is going to shift the structure, but that's the first thing I do. I analyze the higher time frame first. Um, I identify my supply and or demand zones. And then once I identify this particular, and let me just mark it as a supply zone. Once I identify this particular supply zone, I then go to where price currently is, and I look at the structure. So this was the last high, price pulled back, and then price broke structure. So this is the actual structure, the current structure, right? So once price gets into this zone right here, I'm expecting to see some form of structure. So I'm going to go down to the daily. So in this leg, I can look at the structure. The last structure that I see in this leg is this current structure here. So if price decides to pull back, and for me, I'm really only looking for buys because we're going bullish up into this supply zone. So this is the last leg of structure. So once I get a break of the struck, I didn't say this so much, I can't say it. Once I get a break of structure, I immediately mark up my supply or demand zone. So This would be my current, this is the last down candle before this up move. So thank you. Um, so this is the last down candle before this push up. So that is what I would be looking for price to come here, here, hopefully pull back to here, and then continue buying to up. What you looking for? It's downstairs in mama's room. Um, so this is what I would be looking for. Now, if it does not pull back to that zone and creates more structure, meaning if price came here, pushed up, pull back here, and then pushed up again, now I have new structure. So the new structure would be somewhere up in here. Okay, but it has to break this high before identify it as new structure. Any questions on that? So with that being said, and what I do, because I mark this up on the daily, right? And that daily is 150 pips. I'm net, well, it's more than 150 pips because you got to cover the low. So that's 177 pips. I'm never going to have 177 pip stop loss. Okay. So now I just go down to narrow down the zone. I go down in time frame to narrow down the zone. So you can do one or two things once price gets into the zone. You can either narrow down the zone or you can wait for price to get there, set an alert, wait for price to get to this zone, go down to your 1 hour or your 15 minute to narrow down. And here is, let me make this bigger. So you have a demand zone here, and I'm just going to mark it up with this here. And then you have this zone here. So once the alert goes off, you can go down to the 1 hour, look at the structure that is going into this zone, or POI is what I call it, or area of interest, and then look for the shift. So if it shifted here, shifted this high, then you would look for, if you trade imbalances, you mark up your imbalance. If you trade demand zone, you would mark up your demand zone. Set a limit to then buy it back up to this zone. So that is what or back up to this high. Let me just say that okay. Any questions on that before I move forward? So that is what I'm looking for GJ. Um, like I said, I'm not planning to trade the pullback as of right now. But if I see if price continues to buy up, like I said, we have new structure. So then if that's the case, then I just mark up the new demand zone. Okay. And then if price shift the structure, then I'm looking for a supply zone to sell back down to this zone or even farther. And it should be even farther because remember on higher time frame, we're in this weekly supply zone. So we're looking for a sell from this zone. And the sell from this zone should be based off of this current structure right here. So I would be looking for price to at least sell back. There's a demand zone here, at least back down to this zone. So depending on where that shift happens, this is where I would be looking to sell back to. Does that make sense? Any questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Um, so with that being said, um, that's what I'm looking for GJ. Based on the daily, this is the current structure. So hopefully price will, this is our swing high. This is our current swing low. So this is the current structure. This is the range. And let me move this. Okay. All right. Now we have GBP AUD. GBP AUD. Let's look at the weekly. Let's look at the bigger picture. Okay. We know that we're in this bearish move down here. We have this current um, high right here. So we're at least approaching or looking to buy at least to that high for now. So now that I know that, so I come to my look for the structure, right? This is the bullish struct. We're in bullish structure. Price has been correcting itself back down to this zone. I've marked up this weekly um, demand zone. So now I'm looking for price to continue selling. So now I just go down to my, well, before that. So based on the weekly, we're in this bearish structure right here, right? We're in this bearish structure. So now if I go down to the daily, I marked up this daily supply zone. This is the last up candle before this down move. I can clearly see that price has created a level of um, a key level, which is a level of support and resistance. So price can either come back up here to continue selling, and then we'll have the next leg of structure. So price would have to break this low for this to be the next leg of structure. But until then, we're in this bearish structure here. So price could bounce back up above this key level into this zone to either continue selling or just sell from this key level to create the next level of structure. So I would be waiting for price. I am waiting for price to pull into this POI or AOI to then shift to then start buying back up to this high. Because remember, we're looking to go in this direction. So now if I go down to the 4 hour, yeah, we're still bullet. I mean, we're still bearish. We've been going bearish. Um, and I do see a little 4 hour supply zone here. So price could push back up into the zone and then continue selling. Um, so yeah, that's what I see for GBP AUD. Or like I said, it could go back up to here. It could go back up to here. But just know that you're in this bearish structure. So, any questions on GBP AUD? All right, GN. First thing I'm going to do is look at the bigger picture. As we can see, we had this break of structure here. So I immediately, as soon as I get a break of structure, I mark up my supply and or demand zone. And then I go to where price is and look at the structure. Price broke structure here. This was a high. Price broke this high, so that makes this the swing low. And within the break of this high, in this leg, you have this current structure. You have this push up, this pull back, this push up, this pull back, did not break this low. So now price is consolidating. Um, I think because we had this break, and if you've been with us long enough, you know, once you get a break of structure, you should expect some kind of correction. So price could start pulling back. I did mark up this supply zone, but I'm not going to set a limit because I really want to um, wait for confirmation. So my confirmation will be once price move into here. If it doesn't take out this high, meaning close above it, then I'm looking for a shift in structure. So once I see that shift, then I can look to take a sell back down to my demand zone. Or you can always target for intraday trades, you can always target the swings, the swing lows if we're selling. So this would be a TP1, TP2, TP3. Um, so that's what I'm looking for GN. Now, if price gets into this zone and closes above this high, then I have a new level of structure. So you have this and then this pulled back. So if price came here, it pulled back, and if it breaks structure, now I have a new level of, I have a new demand level or zone. So this would be my if price breaks this high, this would be my new demand zone that I would look for price to pull back and then continue buying to the upside. Any questions on GN? No questions? Okay. GU. GU. So if I look at the bigger picture, let's look at the bigger picture. Bigger picture is telling me that price came here, broke structure. Oops. Price came here, broke structure. So this was my swing high, right? So once you have your break of structure, your swing, you identify your swing high, swing low. That's my swing high. And of course, this is our swing low. All right. So now that price is broken structure, we get a correction. So now I marked up my supply zone. I look at the current structure We had this break of structure, prices buying up, broke structure. There appears to be a correction happening, right? So based on the correction, let's just go to the daily. We had this break of structure. I marked up my supply zone here. So now price, I was thinking that price would come here and then start selling, but price tapped but did not break this low because that was the structure that bought into that zone. So once price came, it pulled back, did not break this low, and then continue buying. Okay, so we're gonna X that out. We're gonna X this out. This is the actual um, premium zone. Prices in the premium zone. This is the supply zone that was formed from this break of structure. So now I'm waiting for price to get into this zone to look for a sell back down to this low. So based on current price, we have the push up here, this pullback, and then this push up here. So we're in bullish structure. So bullish structure, once we get that break, I am looking for my, or can anybody tell me? Can anybody tell me what I'm looking for? Anybody know? Can anybody tell me what I'm looking for in this bullish structure?
Church,
Huh?
church,
Nope. Once you get your break of structure, what should you immediately mark up?
Support.
Um, not quite.
once you get your breaker structure.
You mark your new swing high and swing low. Is that what you're talking about?
Okay, you can mark your swing high, swing low,
You should expect a correction.
Yeah,
and
pull back.
okay, but where should the pullback possibly go to? Where would you want the pullback to go to?
Oh, the your demands on.
Correct. So here's a little demand zone here. Now I'm gonna go down to so this would be the last. So this pushed up, pushed up, pushed up, pull back, and then gave this move. So I'm gonna go down to the 1 hour. You can see that there's a demand zone here. The farther the demand zone is, or the closer it is to um your swing or your edge, you want to trade your edges. The closer it is to your edge, which means closer it is to your swing low or swing high, the less likely you will be in drawdown. Okay. So now I see a demand zone here. So I would definitely at least mark it up. So once price got there, I can look to see what the structure has created to get there, right? So once I would set an alert here, once there was once the alert was triggered, I can look at this structure that was created to get to this zone. Either price is going to shift that structure and then you look to buy it back up to here, or price is going to respect the structure, pull back, and continue selling back down to this area of interest. And then you can either set your limit down here, or you can wait for the shift to happen, then mark up the new demand zone, and then trade it up to the swing high. Because if you set a limit here, or you see, or you think this is the demand zone, you're going to have to cover this low. And that's a 89, 90 pip stop loss. For currency pairs, 20, 30, 40 max. I know Andrew does 40. 40 max for a stop loss. I generally like to do 20 pips. So that's 26. So I would round it up to 30, or wait for price to shift, and then the stop loss would be even smaller, because this would be the swing low. I would still cover up under here though. Okay. So any questions on that? All right. And the reason why I would not sell it right now, so if you look at the current structure, the 1 hour structure, you see this was high, this was the pullback, and then it brought up to here, right? Price would have to shift this internal structure if I'm going to look for sales. So right now it's just ranging between this high and this low, internal low. It's ranging between this internal low and this high. So price would either have to close below here, and then I would need to see, then I would look for my supply zone, wherever that may be, right? To then look to sell it down to here. But it hasn't shifted this structure yet. All right. Any questions on that? Okay. So that's what I'm looking for GBP USD. Looking for price to pull back to an optimal trade and entry. And then to buy it back up to this high or even higher. And then once it gets to this zone, I'm looking for a shift in structure or a chalk, change in character, to then sell it back down to here. But it has to show me the change in character. But for now, because we're bullish in bullish structure, I would be looking for buys. And then an advanced move would be to trade the correction. But if you don't trade it from up here, there's no need in trying to trade it in between, in the middle. So you have to sell high and then buy low. All right. All right. NASDAQ. First thing I want to do is look at the bigger picture. We know that this has been bullish for some time now. There's nothing to the left to look for a supply zone to sell from. So I then just look at the structure. Price came here, price pulled back, and price broke structure. So now I just go down in time frame to look for the internal moves of that leg. So this was the last pullback and push up. Price wick this low but did not close below. So either price is going to come back to this supply zone to sell, or it's going to keep buying. And as you can see, the structure that is currently forming. So if price came up here and closed above this internal high, this is the new structure. So so if price came into here, shifted a little structure, then I would be looking to sell it to this demand zone or wait for price to come back into this zone to finish buying. Okay. That is what I would be looking for. I would be looking for price to come into the supply zone, look for a shift. If you're going to sell it, back down to somewhere in this demand zone. And then once it got to this demand zone, I would look for a shift in structure to continue buying. Any questions on NASDAQ? Now, if price doesn't break this high or it just wicks the high and doesn't close above here, then price could be selling down to um, this low, back to this low. Okay. US 30. Same thing. There's nothing to the left. Price has been bullish. If I go to the weekly, I see this high here, this break of structure. So this is our leg of structure or our range. If I go down to the daily, I can see that I have this break of structure. Oops. I can see that I have this break of structure. Okay. So once I get a break of structure, I immediately mark up my supply or demand zone. This would be my zone here. So I would want to see price come back to this zone to start buying more. And then if I look at the structure that before I get in if I decide to get in a sell, this is the current structure of this leg. So we have from here to here to here. The current structure of this leg is right here. So if I go down to my 4-hour, and I'm going to remove all these right here. Okay. So we have this move here, and then we have this current internal structure here. I still would wait for this is the swing low that I would be looking for price to break. And within that 4-hour structure, you have this current demand zone. So price could sell down to there and start buying some more. So I wouldn't necessarily, this would not be a shift in structure for me right here. It would have to be this low right here because price did not break structure until right here. So all this is one. If price had broken out here, pulled back, and then this would be my swing. But price did not break this high until this candle right here. So this is my swing low. So, so I would like to see price close above here. Now, this is our current swing high. This is my current swing high. So if price closes above this high, then we have new structure. Oops. Then we have new structure, but it has to close above first. Okay, so that would be the new structure. But we have to wait for price to show us what it wants to do. This is the current structure right here. Okay, any questions on US 30? All right, gold. First thing I do, what's the look, I already gave it away. First thing I do is look at the big picture. The big picture, we're in bullish structure. There's nothing to the left to look for a supply zone. So based on the weekly, this is our current structure. This was the break of structure here. So we know at some point we're going to get the correction, the pullback. So now we have to see, let's go to the daily. Don't see a pullback as of yet. Now, the only reason I'm kind of expecting a pullback is because of a fib move. So if I go to my daily, um, I go to my daily, I fib this move, this initial move right here, price pullback to the 618. So I was expecting price to buy up to the negative 618. Price has bought up to the negative 618. Negative 618 is a sign of reversal. So like when price even tapped here and started rejecting at the 618, that was a sign that price was likely going to reverse. Of course, if I go down to a smaller time frame, we'll probably see the shift in structure somewhere in here to then continue buying up. And let me just go down to a smaller time frame so I can show you. So we see this is the 618 right here. Price tap the 618. If we look at the structure, price shifted structure here, right? So once you get a shift in structure or a break in structure, what do? You mark up your supply or demand zone. And let me just go up to the 4 hour. Hold on. You mark up your supply or demand zone. So once this shift in structure happened, then I can mark up my demand zone. And that's it. And then you can take it up to this high or hold it. Once it tapped this high, you can look at the structure that was formed. It tapped this high, nothing broke below this low. So you could have just stayed in the trade, even with this pullback. And you see it then went here and it pulled back, went up here, pulled back, went up, pulled back, went up. So, um, and then once it hit the negative 27, because there was a 4 hour supply zone here, Once it hit this negative 27, once it hit the supply zone, this was the structure that was forming. It did not break any of the lows, so you could have stayed in the trade. Long as price is respecting the structure, you can stay in the trade. Any questions on gold? So now that price has tapped and or hit the negative 618, I am expecting some kind of pullback because negative 618 is a zone of reversal um, or pullbacks. Um, yes, long as price respects the structure, you can stay in your trade. Yep. So once this shift happened, again, once the shift, oh, sorry, right here. Well, this shift happened too, and there was a demand zone. But once this shift happened, you mark up your demand zone. You can set your limit based off of that. That's a lot of pips, but I'm on the 4 hour. Um, so yes, you could have targeted this high, which was 3,400 pips. You could have targeted um, the negative 27, which was 3,100 pips, 3,400 pips, or 4,300 pips. All right. Any questions on gold? Oh, hold on. Let me go back down to 1 hour. Um, like I said, because I'm expecting a sell because it has tapped a negative 618, I marked up this 15-minute supply zone. So, and I have an alert set. So once price gets into this zone, um, I'm looking for some either a shift in structure or a break of this high. One of the two. So if price comes here and shift structure, then I'm looking for I'm going to mark up the new supply zone and I'm going to sell gold. Because we had this break of structure, we should be expecting a correction. Because it tapped the negative 618, we should be looking for a correction. So we shall see what happens this upcoming week for a possible sell. And where would I sell it to? I would definitely at least sell down to this zone here. Of course, this is the swing low of that zone, of that structure. So it could come back down to here and then start buying back up because of structure. Okay. Any questions on gold? All right. UJ. First thing I'm going to do is go to higher time frame, look at the bigger picture. Um, we see that we're in bullish structure. So if we're in bullet, oh, hold on. We're in bullish structure, right? So now we just look at the price broke structure here. So we have this leg of structure here, and then price pulled back, and then broke structure again. So this was a market structure shift here. We marked up the, let me move this so everybody can see. So once we had that market structure shift, we marked up this daily. I just marked up the 3 candles just so once I'll set an alert. So we're looking for price to buy up into this zone to then possible sell, right? So if I look where current price is, this is the structure. We have price pull up, break this high, pull back, and then break here. So now this is our demand zone. Price pulled back into this demand zone. So we're looking for price to continue buying. Price pulled back into the demand zone. So we're looking for price to continue buying. So um, we have a daily bullish order block. So price could pull back to that order block and then start buying up. So, and I'm just going to mark up this zone here. So price has either got to break this high, which means price can pull back, break this high, and then pull. Once it breaks this high, the thing I'm going to do is mark up the demand zone. So if it doesn't pull back here and breaks this high first, then I'm expecting price to pull back here and keep buying. If it pulls back to this zone first, because you have this internal structure, this is internal, it could push back down into here and then start buying. But it is a demand zone. It is at an optimal trade and entry. So I would be looking for price to pull back somewhere into this zone to keep buying. So if I go to the 4 hour, yeah, I would wait for price to pull back into this zone. All right. Any questions on you, Jay? Any questions on anything I haven't discussed? Any questions? Going once, going twice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If there are no other questions, that's all I got for today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Huh?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.